Hello, everyone. I am Ali. I'm co-founder, CEO here at Letter AI, and I have the distinct pleasure to be your host through the next 45 minutes, having a conversation with some truly exceptional enablement leaders. And the focus of this session, as I'm sure you've seen many other sessions, is AI in action, AI and enablement. But we really wanted this to be a no BS talk with organizations that are really leading the charge when it comes to driving results from their revenue teams, leveraging AI. I learn a ton talking to the folks on this panel every single day, every time we connect, and we thought it'd be great to share some of the insights with the group here today. So we're gonna start with some quick intros. So if folks could just go around, give your name, your role, your company, and one sentence on what AI means to you in your work. I will start with you, Amy.
Hello. My name is Amy Orr. I lead sales training and enablement at DoorDash. Big shout out. Big group of my team is here. I've been there about 3.5 years. I'm based in Denver, Colorado. And to me, I think AI means efficiency. To keep it really, really simple, it's having a tool to do things that you have not been able to do before, or do things that you've always done a heck of a lot quicker.
Love it. Taryn.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Taryn Rosada. I lead enablement at Plaid. And AI to me, very similar, as I'm sure it will be down the line, but I view it as a productivity tool that will help us maximize employee performance.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tierney Steele. I am from Netflix as a global sales enablement lead, and specifically in the advertising division. So shout out to anyone who has Netflix with ads. Appreciate your business. What AI means to me, very similar to Amy, it means improving productivity. I think it is taking routine or repetitive tasks and finding a way to do that more efficiently, which allows us to then focus on more strategic initiatives for the organization.
Amazing. Happy Wednesday. Is today Wednesday? Yeah, happy
Yes.
Wednesday.
You were trying to get ready for Halloween. I was like, I haven't seen her in person because we only talked virtually, but darn.
Happy Wednesday. So Katie Swick, I have had the opportunity to work at some great companies, and actually, as of Monday, I boomeranged back to Stripe, so I actually don't work at Zip anymore, but great company, and I'll tell you more about that. I would agree with everything that you guys have said. So AI, in my mind, is something that helps us move faster, smarter. I personally love it for building pivot tables, for those of you that love a good pivot table, so doing things faster and smarter.
Awesome, thank you for the intros. And fun fact, Taryn and Tierney were both at AOL. And if you want a fun happy hour activity, ask for their AOL screen name from back in the day. All right, excellent. So starting with our first question, and this one will start with Katie. How did your AI journey start? What was the initial driver?
Yeah, so actually Laura, who's here in the room, and I had an opportunity to work together. And when we started using AI and enablement, it really was around how do we, one, provide more to our sellers than they can get just from the few folks in enablement. And then two, how can we make it at a higher quality, right? So even thinking about, you know, you do a live training, there's always someone that can't make it, that's just life. How do you make it into an on-demand training afterwards? Or if someone's coming out of onboarding and they need a little bit of practice or they need some sort of learning intervention, how are you using AI to really do the things that you don't have the bandwidth to do? So that's kind of where we started. And I would say when I left on Friday, we had kind of taken it full circle. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but I think we found that a lot of the use cases didn't change, but they evolved, right? And they got more complicated, and that was a good thing because it meant that we had nailed the basics. So going back to how do we build content easier? How do we give people practice opportunities that they didn't have before? How do we put learning in the hands of managers that they didn't have an opportunity to do before? So that's kind of where we started, and I would say we brought it full circle.
Yeah, and I think, Amy, you have what the kids might call a hot take on this, so maybe you could answer as well.
I'm like the opposite side of things. Raise your hand if you were skeptical about AI right out of the gate. Yeah, not very many of you, but I found myself very, very skeptical, especially as it relates to bringing it into the workplace. My background is in payroll and HRIS sales, and so the idea of putting any proprietary information into a tool to have it churn it up and spit it back out and live forever in some ecosystem was very terrifying to me. So for AI, I actually found that I had to get on board with it from a personal perspective first. And once I did that and started to see some of the efficiencies that it brings and some of the conveniences that it provided me in my day-to-day, I was like, you know what? I think I might give this a go at work. I'm pretty sure most of my team that's here probably bought into it before I did. So I fall on a little bit of the other side, but I think having that balance of having to invest in it personally first actually is making me a more curious investor now.
And Taryn, I think it'd be interesting to hear your journey as well.
Yeah, we saw an opportunity, and there was someone on my team who had already started to lean into AI in their personal life, and so we, tapped him basically to help us figure it out, and started, to allocate some of his time to AI enablement. And our first step was just focused on 101 enablement, helping people understand the possibilities and how to prompt, things like that. And then that sort of spun into building out a full-on AI enablement strategy to help us scale. And a year later, it's evolved so quickly.
Awesome. Anything you want to add, Tierney?
+1 to everything. No, very, very similar concept. I think I am what I would call an early adopter of AI. I love tech. I come from a tech background. So for me, definitely exploring new tools that will help me do my job more efficiently is exciting and fun. So within Netflix and just in my personal life, adopting a lot of that technology, kind of trial and error, honestly, and then finding new ways, and certainly being at conferences like this and hearing about new tools that I was like, oh, never heard of that before. So it's been a really great way to figure out how we can incorporate this within our organization.
Yeah, and I think having worked with you, Tierney, I feel like you had another career in product management with the way you think about AI and like how it can change things in the enablement workflow. Okay, next question. What is one AI project you failed at and one thing that you're proud of building? We'll start with you again, Tierney.
That's always a good one. I wouldn't say there was any one single project of failure. I think there was a lot of experimentation and a lot of trial and error. I'm sure we all have received those cold emails about some new AI tool that's going to improve your revenue and change your life magically for X amount of dollars. So there's a lot of choice out there, and I think when I was initially approaching the challenge of like, hey, what challenge am I trying to solve? Am I trying to find efficiency for the team? Am I trying to build e-learnings faster? I was able to kind of narrow down my list to maybe 3 to 5, and then start really just kind of digging into that, signing up for a free trial, looking at reviews, watching tutorial videos, and then really trying it for myself. I'll say not all of them are gems. Some of them are challenging to use, too costly, too niche, but there are a few that turned out to be really, really helpful for the team, whether it's AI role plays, whether it's helping to build documentation, whether it's improving the search and finding of content. So for me, I think that has really kind of been the journey, is really all these little failures along the way to find out what's going to work for the organization, and what works for me today might not work for us in 6 months. It might not work if I was at a different company. So I think that's definitely learnings that I continue to take with me. One proud moment, I would say, is the speed at which our team is now able to deploy training. I see you smiling back there. Really proud of my team for leaning in. I think they have also been early adopters to different AI tools. And now we're able to really kind of take the next step in enablement, in the sense of we have all of our traditional things that we're able to deploy, but we're doing it now in a way that allows us to scale much faster, especially as our business is scaling quite quickly. We're able to make things more interactive and less kind of boring, where it's like, oh, I have to take this new training. We're now able to make that a little bit more interactive and much more personalized than it was before. So I think it's come a long way for me, and certainly a lot of new insights from where I was several years ago. So now I use AI in my daily life, and I feel like I don't know how I ever did that before.
Anybody else want to add thoughts?
So I don't know that it was a fail, but I definitely misjudged. So when we rolled out Letter within our organization, my hypothesis going in, for those of you that aren't familiar, it's like a CMS and LMS in one. Right, or that's at least the way that I was using it, and the team was using it. And my assumption and my hypothesis going in was that all of the great stuff would rise to the top, so you didn't have to spend as much time keeping your library clean underneath the hood with your knowledge management. That turned out to be completely false. Completely false. And the reason behind that, I think, was kind of twofold. So, like, one, I assumed that everyone was going to look for stuff via Slack, right? Because I worked for a very Slack-heavy organization, and I just assumed when you want to find something, you search for it via Slack, or you just ask the AI bot. What we actually found is that about half of our people use Slack to find things. The other half actually went into the tool and did good old-fashioned keyword search, right? And so if you don't keep your knowledge repository really clean, trash comes to the top, just like it does in the olden days before AI, right? So I think that was a hypothesis that we had to go back, and because we were wrong when we implemented it, we had to go back and do kind of the tedious work after the fact of cleaning up the library and things like that. I think another thing that actually I proved to be wrong, and it turned out to be a good thing, was I assumed, and kind of going back to the speaker before this, I assumed that our sales leadership would not lean into things like AI simulations. That, too, was an incorrect assumption, and a good one, right? Because we actually had our sales leadership team that loved the AI simulations, and not only did it themselves, but actually would require them of their teams in preparation for some big calls. So I would say no failures, but a lot of great lessons learned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I remember getting an email from one of the sales leaders who tried it and just found the bot incredibly difficult. It was really cool to see. Taryn, anything you want to add?
I don't think it's a failure, but it sounds like it's a common thing that a bunch of us have tried. We started with role play, and before having a tool that would help us do that, we built it in ChatGPT. And it wasn't a perfect solution. It was really hard to scale. Obviously, it's lacking some of the analytics, and that's ultimately what led us to Letter in finding a role play solution that worked. Because similar, to Katie, our sales leaders and our salespeople actually really enjoyed it. And I think there's safety in practicing with a robot instead of a person, right? And so that's something that was sort of a failure that turned into a success for us.
Amy, anything to add?
I think they covered a lot of it. I'll just add, I think one of our biggest challenges, it's not a failure because it's never done, but I think, does anybody else have their sales data in like 97 billion different places? Yeah, I think as we think about AI and its ability to parse data across a lot of different sources to pull themes, to make recommendations, especially as we think about truly enabling revenue for an organization, I think it's a bit daunting at times to try to figure out how to pull the right data from the right places to get the results. So again, not a failure because we're certainly not done at any point, but it's definitely a challenge. And in talking to these ladies, I know it's a pretty common challenge across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, if we could get the question slide up, this will be the last prepared question, and then folks should start submitting questions. Okay. What changed about how you measure readiness or training effectiveness since AI entered the picture? And this one, Taryn, if you want to kick us off.
Sure. I don't think it's changed how we're measuring, but it's allowing us to do it more effectively. So especially that level 3 and level 4, right? So level 3 being behavior change and level 4 being revenue impact. Things like role plays, the AI features in the various tools within the tech stack are helping us to do that more effectively and easier and quicker and be able to tell that story, especially at that level 4 revenue impact, but especially the behavior change. So I don't think it's changed per se. I'm hopeful that over time, the data and the analytics, especially in tools like LMS, CMS, will get even better because of AI, and we'll be able to pull insights faster and more effectively, but ultimately not necessarily changing the way we measure, but changing its effectiveness.
One thing I would just add to that on the measurement and the effectiveness is one of the things we're loving is the ability to have a consistent scorecard of what good looks like as it relates to like a role play, a mock pitch, a cold call. Managers have always had their own opinions of what good looks like, right? And one manager might say, my rep is so good at this. And another manager is like, God, well, you know what, my team really struggles. And I think something that AI has changed for us, the way we measure, is like having that consistent foundational line of what good looks like and being able to more accurately gauge, especially for new hires as they start to come through.
I would say my experience has been that it's taken away any patience that people have, right? Where you used to be able to kind of come back to your leadership team in a month or 2 months and tell how things are going. I would say people expect kind of real-time insights. And so the example that I'll give is from my conversation this morning at 8 a.m. I was having a conversation with the sales leadership team, and we were talking about learning interventions for our vendors overseas, not on a weekly or a monthly or a quarterly basis, but now they want to serve them up in real time based on their call scores for the day, right? So imagine that you used to be able to, this is vendors, so you used to be able to score maybe 5% of their calls with some sort of scorecard. Now you can score 100% of their calls, which is what we're doing, and serving up real-time data and insights and learning interventions, right? Like, hey, you didn't talk about this product right, or you didn't ask enough open-ended questions, or you were rude, right? Whatever it may be. And they are expecting now to do that in real time, where it used to be, I'm going to show my age here, but like 10, 15 years ago, hey, go and do an analysis, let us know what you think the floor needs from a training perspective, build it, and then put it out there, right? So I would say my experience is there's no more patience. No more patience, which can be a great thing, right?
Yeah, I agreed. I think AI measurement it's not done yet. I think there's a lot of room to grow, but to what Taryn said, we're still using a lot of those traditional methods, right? Surveys are not going away, employee sentiment is not going away, word of mouth feedback is not going away. I think we still have those metrics and those are important, but now we're able to tell a better data-driven story from a lot of different perspectives, whether that's better insight into an individual employee's role play or how they're going to market, but also just from an enablement team's perspective. So thinking of now with numbers that we're able to tie in CRM metrics, LMS metrics, et cetera, we can tell a story of, do I require more headcount because 732 people have requested training on legal contracting? Like, do we require more headcount? What kind of budget do I ask for, each year to invest in more tools? Because now we actually have data to help us prove some of those arguments to say, here's the real need, or here's the improvement or behavior change that we've seen. So I think the measurement is definitely heading in the right direction. And now we're getting data points that we never had before to pair with a lot more of those kind of traditional methods that we had.
Excellent. Any last points folks want to make before we go to the audience's questions? No. All right, let's dive in. So rated at the very top, if a sales enablement team currently lacks AI tools, which tool or topic, of course, letter AI, do you think is the best starting point? And I know some of your organizations don't let you speak to specific tools and things like that, but so you could speak to topics if you'd prefer instead. Yeah, whoever wants to answer first.
So I'm happy to kick off. My recommendation to anyone kind of approaching this space is figure out your use cases, right? AI can do a lot of things. Think about what you want it to do for you and for your organization, because I think it's like, hey, drink more water, right? I think you have to have very specific use cases. You have to have very specific goals, just like any other kind of tool or behavior change that you're trying to roll out. I think this is where early adopters found a lot of traction because they had the right prompts to use ChatGPT. They had the right use cases, and this was where other people kind of threw their hands up and said, I don't know what to do with all of this. So that would be my call out to anyone kind of forging into this space.
I would also say just try, like just start. Look for those, 3 to 4 areas of monotonous work that occurs across your work streams and just get in a tool that you have available, whether it's Gemini, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's one of the other millions of things that are available out there, and just give it a go, right? You're not doing it on a public stage where people are going to critique the way you're approaching something. But I think, I know for me, again, as a skeptic early on, once you start dabbling, the ideas just start pouring in.
Yeah, that progress over perfection. And some organizations are more, enabled for that. But when we started, there were sort of 3 buckets we focused on. The first was AI enablement, so 101 level, just teaching people how to use tools that are available to them. Second was AI within the tech stack. So if you don't have the ability to go out and procure new tools, I'm certain that within your tech stack, all of those tools are adding AI onto what they do, and so which features make sense for your organization to adopt. And then the third for us was productivity projects. So there are pain points within your organization that AI can help you solve. Maybe there's some quick wins there to experiment and drive adoption. And so, those 3 areas is kind of what got us started.
I agree. I mean, I think if you go on a mental journey with me for a moment here, but many moons ago, I found myself at 10 p.m. Sitting in a very dark coat closet on the floor, and the only thing I saw was the glow of my laptop screen, and that's because I was recording voiceovers for an e-learning that was due later that week. I don't know if anyone has ever sat in a closet, because that's the place where it's very quiet and you don't hear talking, right? And after about the 100th time of re-recording a voiceover, I had the thought that I was like, there has to be a better way to solve this problem. And that's really kind of what opened the door, literally, to finding an AI solution at the time, which was really natural sounding voiceovers that could allow me to work more efficiently. So like that was my aha moment of finding a challenge that I was like, I can't keep doing this. Like this is crazy. The industry and the topics are changing so fast that it was hard to keep up with just keeping them refreshed on top of also trying to innovate and do something new. So whatever that challenge is for you in your organization or in your workflow or within your team, find that thing that's just really eating away at you. For me, it was very much focused on productivity within the enablement team of like, how can we build faster? If you're a small, lean team that you don't really have the opportunity to have a headcount, what can you do that will help you roll things out faster, whatever that challenge that you're looking to face? And then literally just do an internet search of like, what AI tool is out there that might work, and then give it a try. Some of them are gonna be awful. Some of them are gonna be complicated, but you will find one that's going to work for you. And once you do, I promise, it's going to change the way that you think about adopting that within the organization, because you will really see the value.
Okay, so next question. Oh, I know the answer to this one. Are you using any AI tools to develop training, particularly for products? How have they contributed to scaling?
Yes. So at Plaid, there's a lot in our sales bag. There's so many products that the team can sell, and we still have a generalist model where every salesperson needs to know a lot about many things. And so product enablement's a huge focus for us. And the tool that we use is Letter. That is really helping us scale product enablement, right? So we started with AI role play, experimenting in ChatGPT. That led us to looking for a solution, which ultimately led us to Letter. And those AI agents and conversations that we've weaved into our product enablement have tremendously helped us move faster, help the team really practice their knowledge. They can even teach it back, which you can use the sort of agents to help you practice as well. And we're finding comprehension is increased as well as that behavior change. So we're measuring in Gong the conversations that they're having, and we've seen an increase in their ability to talk about our products as a result of really the AI role play and the way we've designed those learnings within Letter.
Awesome. I guess maybe one follow-up to that question for folks is, do you think that it's the velocity gains with AI-driven training and enablement that delivers the value? Is it the time savings that your teams get back? Is it the additional engagement? Like, what is it about AI-native training and enablement tools that give you that additional unlock?
I think it's scalability is the first one that comes to mind. At DoorDash, we've got 2,500 plus sales reps across a number of regions that work a lot of different time zones and are gold on a lot of different things. And so the ability to put something together, deploy it quickly, but scale it to massive audiences is really something that was more challenging to do with some of these antiquated LMS tools and ways that we used to deploy content.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would agree with that. I mean, even a simple use case, like how many of you, I'm horrible at writing MCQ questions, literally the worst ever. And I think just even something as simple as hey, create me a quiz based on kind of this e-learning or whatever it may be. I think those are some of the little efficiencies that I really value. Here's what I would say too is, I think there's a lot that we can learn through K-12, right? I get a lot of my inspiration from, I can't help my son with his calculus homework, so I use Gemini to take a picture, right? And it tells me how to do it. So I would just say too, there's a lot of things that you can just, going back to a point made earlier, get ideas in life and think how am I gonna bring that to life for my sales teams? Because that's where I spend a lot of my time thinking about is how do I take something that used to create a little bit of friction for the sales leaders, for the salespeople themselves, and how do I use AI or just kind of a combination of tools to help reduce that friction, right? And help build that attraction economy.
Yeah, that's great. And fun fact, the name Letter comes from learn better, combined Letter. And then the domain was available, so anyway.
Did you guys know that?
No,
Okay, great.
Awesome. Okay, so up next, this is a good one. For those of you who originally built role plays via ChatGPT, but are now utilizing other third-party tools, what are the biggest differences between the two?
The analytics. I mean, hands down. ChatGPT, and you shout out to anybody in this room that works for OpenAI, is doing some really great things. But the problem is if a sales rep gets into ChatGPT and does a role play, it doesn't attach to their employee profile, right? You have no historical progression to showcase against sales competencies. And so with a tool that actually embeds their data, their practices, one of my favorite parts of being able to role play is that the reps actually get to practice before they submit their final one that they say, this is my highest and best. But we have all of that data, John did 8 run-throughs before he submitted this. He may not be feeling super confident in this. Manager, maybe this is something that we need to tap into. So I think it's creating that profile and really maintaining those analytics across the board. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think ChatGPT is great. I use it daily when Netflix has their own instance with some guardrails in place that we're able to use internally. But I think there's definitely a use case for that of help me write an email, summarize this, make this more concise. I use that regularly. But I think there are other tools which are much more specific to needs of enablement, whether that's help me build a training that I don't have to just enter in all the prompts, because sometimes I don't have all the details. Maybe I have 3 slides and a memo, and they're like, hey, build this training, it's due in 3 days, and you're like, okay, all right, I'll make that up on the go. So how do I actually build all of these visuals, put that together, find a way that is measurable and is fun and exciting in a new, interesting way? So I think AI is really opening the door to be more creative and to also be more personalized, whether it is through a one-on-one role play with a particular persona, or whether it is a way of making us more efficient of not using the traditional content authoring tools, where I'm like, okay, I don't know what prompt I need, but I know that I need something, and I know I need it now, right? So how do I actually build a voiceover where I don't have to sit in a closet, and it's able to do that for me, and I can make it much more dynamic and customizable. So I think adding on these additional tools with ChatGPT or something similar to that is definitely the direction that they're going. And to Taryn's point, so many tools that you already have in your repertoire are adopting versions of AI, whatever that means for that business.
There's just one thing I'll add on the ChatGPT versus AI roleplay tools is, yes, the analytics is huge for it, but also, so what we were doing was we created one that would generate a scorecard after you did your roleplay for the individual. Then they'd have to screenshot that and upload that to our LMS as proof that they did it, right? So it's saving the enablement team time, it's saving the reps time, it's making it more scalable in addition to the analytical information that you get on the back end.
Did you have 100% completion of that?
Never, no.
Awesome. This next set of questions is fantastic. So one, have you noticed AI adoption varies by seller seniority / generation? How do you address any gaps in utilization?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I think not to be like ageist by any means, but I mean, I think as an organization, we have some very seasoned sellers. People have been doing it for many years. They're very well in their craft. I think depending on what the AI tool is more adoption than others. AI roleplay for us has been a bit more of like a harder sell, just because people sometimes get set in their ways and they're like, I'm doing well, I'm meeting my quota, my clients like me, I don't really need to practice. But there are other tools when you present efficiency of like, here's how much time you will save, here's how much more money you will make, here's how many more deals you will close, but positioning it in a different way is certainly helping. But I also think it just comes with practice and then tying things into getting buy-in, whether that's across your organization or across your leadership team, to really kind of show the value that AI could bring. And I think to your point, there's ton to learn from the younger generation, right? Ask your kids, ask your neighbors, like, hey, what are you using? What are you using it for? I honestly learned about one, I think you were telling me, Amy, is it Sana, about AI music creation, where they're creating jingles for their company, and I was like, that'd be pretty cool. So I think there's a lot of different types of tools, but yes, we definitely are hearing that some people are more willing to adopt than others, and I think it's just slowly introducing the ones that are going to have the biggest impact and are solving the most difficult challenge, and generally people will slowly get on board when they start seeing that value.
Yeah, for us, just tactically, we implemented something called the AI Day. And so we're now running that quarterly. And the goal there is just to help people get exposed to AI, get comfortable with it. And so we ran a session last week for AI Day where we tapped various folks within the go-to-market organization who are using AI in unique ways. So we have a salesperson who created a prospecting agent that is the most used agent within the team. They led a session on how they did that, how to interact with it, how to use it. On the account management side of the business, they are using Glean agents to create reports and things because there's sort of a connection to Salesforce there. And so they ran a session showing other people how they created it, how they do that. So we absolutely see a gap. And for the people that we're trying to bring along and start to have them adopt and dip their toes into AI, I find exposure is helping them do that and finding trusted peers that have already done what they want to do, and it sparks ideas for them, and then they get a bit more curious.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know that I've seen any trends except for just kind of your early adopter type of curve that you have in technology in general, right? So we had a few folks that built their territory plans using ChatGPT, right? And then that kind of took off and everyone was sharing the prompts and things like that. We just launched at Zip before I left a tool for prospecting. That was totally AI driven. So you don't have to go to LinkedIn Sales Nav anymore and, like do all of those kind of like 5 site research kind of tasks, but it brings it all into a portal. And so obviously you have early adopters of that. It was mostly people that don't like doing all of that work. So they were like, sure, give me the portal. So I would say I'm finding that it's not necessarily a specific person or type of person other than kind of just the typical technology or change management curve. Yeah.
That's great. And speaking of AI-generated music and music videos, one of our customers, Kong, is I think in the audience. They did something really cool where they had a whole music video to accompany their launch of Letter. Really catchy song, all AI-generated. Okay, up next. This is a question from Rob. There's often overlap of features, especially with every tool touting AI capabilities. How do you reconcile this with your tech stack spend?
You might have stumped the panel. No, I'm kidding. This is definitely a challenge. What I'll offer on this is I think the landscape is evolving so rapidly. And so we're being really thoughtful about what we're bringing into the tech stack, thinking about renewals in a different way and maybe different time frames of how we operate with tools just to account for the change. It's hard to predict and it's hard to say. It's just figuring out, sort of like I said, in those 3 buckets I mentioned earlier, within the tech stack, which features are most relevant to your team based on your use cases, as Katie said. So identifying your use cases and then figuring out how to align your tech stack accordingly.
Don't sign long contracts. Unpopular opinion, sorry, Ali.
That's what I was kind of getting.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you walk into the expo room, you see like 10 tools that all do the same thing, and they're all at different points of their journey as a business. Be really rigid in your, RFP process and do it often. My father reminds me every year, have you evaluated your car insurance this year? I mean, you're falling behind if you're not changing car insurance. And I think it's really going to be similar in the world of AI. Like everything is changing so much every single year. So give it a try, find something that solves a business problem, give it a go with maybe a short contract, and then evaluate as you go through it. I think that's the only way to be successful as the landscape continues to change.
I think that's great advice. I would also say look for tools that consolidate many features that you're looking to have. So I think with AI and with any new tech, there's always these niche companies that solve just that one thing. And for $29.95 a month, you can solve just that one thing. But you're like, well, now I have 10 or 15 of those tools that solve one thing, but it's not really unified, right? Those platforms and tools aren't really talking to each other. So look into companies or businesses or tools where it's offering some consolidation, where maybe you're getting 3 to 5 features that you really want and need. And I think we'll see more of this as the landscape evolves, whether that's through companies acquiring other companies, whether that's them bringing on new features when they see competitors are doing something similar. So I think we're seeing a lot of that consolidation now. And that was a big consideration for me as well, because you're right that the landscape is changing and evolving, and we don't want there to be so much overlap. It becomes really confusing for your users as well of, do I go to this tool or this tool, because they kind of do the same thing. So I think looking for more unification as much as possible. And then if you really do need kind of that niche tool, most certainly, explore that. And to your point, reevaluate often and frequently to see what else is out there.
Awesome. And Gail, I think there was a misspoke earlier. Amy said sign long contracts with vendors, not just, you could correct
My
the
mistake.
recording. Yeah.
My mistake.
Okay. Here's one. We've been given the okay to leave our current tools, but drastic switch to AI is causing hesitation. Any recommendations on thinking through that switch? The age-old question of change management.
Yeah, I think the same things apply that anytime that you're doing a big change, whether you're rolling out a new sales methodology, a new product, whatever that may be, right? If it comes from enablement, it probably won't work. If it comes from your sales leaders, it probably will work, right? And so you have to have kind of not only the bottom up, but the top down really driving the change. So that would be my number one. The other thing that I would say too is, I talked about building an attraction economy. I think that's really important, right? Like, how are you reducing friction to make it easy for these things to work? Versus launching a new tool or adding to something that they're doing. And my experience is that often this takes a deep collaboration and actually breaking down the silo with sales ops, right? If they're launching 5 new tools and you're launching a new tool and they have a new process and they're rolling out new quotas and territories and everything else at the same time, you're probably not set up for success, right? So that would be my other part of this is I think more and more, especially since these tools are kind of going in the the horizontal direction versus the vertical direction, it's more important than ever that one is coming from the sales leaders and two, you have collaboration with your sales ops folks because a lot of the times they're using, Gong for forecasting and for deal strategy, and now it has your AI-generated scorecards in it, and, right? So that's just an example, but those are kind of the 2 things that I would call out.
I think, who asked this question? Sam. Where's Sam? Sam's silent. Okay. I would say, Sam, wherever you are, you know your organization better than any of us up here will. So I would kind of put it back in the sales dialogue to make sure that you're doing a deep dive analysis to unpack that hesitation so that you can drive a more prescriptive result. And what I mean by that is the hesitation just the fear of the unknown? Is it the fear of, we're going to do one tool and then another tool, and for the next 2 years we're going to be in implementation, and that's a nightmare? Or is it, oh my gosh, it's all going to change at once, and my sales folks can't do that? So I think, we're expert project planners in enablement, or project managers really, and once you know the root of the hesitation, I think you'll be surprised that you can build a pretty solid approach to it.
Okay, we're almost up on time, so I think we have maybe one more, maybe 2. How have you raised the bar on your own enablement team's AI fluency?
Trial and error, right? Like, you're not going to get it right the first time. The first time you build a role play, the first time that you use AI to generate a quiz, whatever it may be, it's not going to be right. Probably the 5th time you do it, it's not going to be right. So trial and error.
For sure. I mean, I think most enablement teams, the fluency varies amongst what their background is. Some folks are more leaned in or have more experience than others. But I think bringing them along, right? Like, train the trainer, have a lunch and learn. I feel like I do it all the time where I'm like, hey team, so I found this new tool and I built this thing, and maybe I share it in Slack and I'm like, check it out. And then someone else will respond and they're like, oh, but I tried this. So I think it's very collaborative in that sense of bringing people along, making mistakes. I kind of use my own team as guinea pigs to pilot test, where I'm like, does this sound good? What are we thinking of this? How do we feel about it? Collect that feedback. And I think a lot of it is just practice, to be honest. Practice getting familiar with the tool that you've chosen, learning from one another, and of course, as lifelong learners, right? We're probably reading and watching those tutorials so that we can teach it back to others. But I think we've just really been leaned in and know that it's not going to be perfect all the time, but we're just moving at a rapid pace where it's good enough for now, and we can always iterate on that later.
And Taryn, if I could ask you to weigh in here, just because I've seen, the Plaid team, AI Day, you have folks who are specifically tasked with looking at AI. Curious to get your take on this.
Yeah, it's the combination of both of those things. So just lean in, give it a try, trial and error, and lunch and learn, sharing with each other. We use our team meeting as a forum to do that. What did you try? What worked? What were the challenges? Okay, let's try that. I am not someone who believes in perfection. Just get it out the door. If it's imperfect, that's okay, but at least we're trying, and then we can continue to iterate on it. And I think that's provided the most learning for us. I will say in one of the earlier sessions, the presenter had asked folks to raise their hand if they've taken an AI course or certification of some kind. I would love to know if there's some good ones out there. Our team has looked for them. We've taken some via Google, and we're looking for those opportunities, but haven't found any that have necessarily really helped us become more proficient. So if there is someone, come see me. I'd love to hear about the course, but that's how we're doing it.
Any last things you want to add to that conversation, Amy?
Man, I would just say our teams do a lot. Carve out the space, carve out the time, make sure that you're talking about it. I think it's really easy when there's a shiny new thing like AI right now to just expect that people are seeking out their own learnings and seeking out, and I'm very guilty of that myself. But I think as leaders, it's really critical that we're creating that safe space to try things, whether it's in team meetings, whether it's lunch and learns. I know that's something that we could all get better at, but I think it's making sure that you're carving out time and not just assuming that everybody has this desire to dive in, because I was at another conference this past weekend, and a lot of the conversation was around the fear of AI and people being nervous about, messing it up or getting bad data and trusting it. And so I think making sure that we're not just always talking about kind of the sexy side, but that we're also being realistic and, like I said, creating that safe space where people can express concerns that they might have.